In this presentation, we will review the future tense, el futuro, and then we will learn what is and how to form el futuro perfecto, the future perfect. First, let's review the future tense. You should have learned this in another video, perhaps with Senor Jordan. El futuro, the future, is formed in English by using the word will or shall. So I will go or I shall go. Will, of course, in English is an extra word that we have to add in to our verb phrase in order to create future. So I will work tomorrow. I will visit Ecuador next summer. Whatever, we have to put in the word will to make future. In Spanish, we don't add in an extra word, as you can see. Rather, we add endings on to the infinitive. So previously, you changed the ending by taking off the AR, ER, IR, and then adding a different ending. But as you can see with future, you leave the infinitive intact, and then you add on extra. So we have the endings e, as, a, hemos, eis, an that we add on to the end of infinitives. And the nice thing is it doesn't matter any longer whether it's AR, ER, or IR. We only have one set of endings for all three conjugations. Very good news. All verbs in Spanish will work this way except what I call the dirty dozen. So we're going to go over those, what I call the dirty dozen. These are the 12 verbs in Spanish that have a special form, a special stem form before you add on the future ending. And there you can see now on the screen on the right side the 6 endings, e, as, a, hemos, eis, an. And I'm going to go through the 12 different verbs quickly because you should have seen them already, but if you haven't, you'll want to memorize them here. The first one we're going to do is the verb decir. You can see the verb decir, rather than putting the E, the accented letter E on the end of decir, we use a shortened form. So instead of saying deciré for I will say or I will tell, we say diré. So diré, dirás, dirá, diremos, diréis, dirán. So if you want to say, what will I say? We would say in Spanish, ¿qué diré? ¿Qué diré? Or if you wanted to say, what will he say? ¿Qué dirá? ¿Qué dirá? Because dirá would be the form for he. And you need to practice saying those over and over and over to yourself, the form, so you can get into your memory the way the verbs would sound in the future. The next one is the verb hacer. Hacer, of course, becomes har. That's the stem form, haré. So in order to say I will make or I will do, we would say haré. So if you wanted to say, for example, what will I do tomorrow? ¿Qué haré mañana? What will they do tomorrow? ¿Qué harán mañana? Next one is the verb poder. What happens with poder and most of the rest of the verbs is the E of the infinitive drops out and the R slides over. So instead of saying poderé, you just say podré. And the reason this happens is because when you say the word fast, if you were to say poderé, 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 what eventually happens is that E sound of poder drops out and you end up saying podré instead of poderé. And that's phonetically why you have this shortened form for this verb and most of the other verbs that you'll see. You'll see that almost invariably the E drops out or sometimes another letter is added in. The next verb, poner. Poner. Be careful with the verb poner because the future stem looks very similar to the verb poder. But poder becomes podré, which of course would be I will be able. Pondré, with the N in there, pondré means I will put. So pondré los libros en la mesa. I will put the books on the table. ¿Dónde pondremos el pastel? Where will we put the cake? The verb querer. Querer drops the E out of the stem, and so the R becomes doubled. So to say I will want, you would say querré. Querré. Now, querer is not a verb that you hear in the future very often, and you really don't hear it in English either that often. You very rarely say I will want or they will want. You might say querrán ir, they will want to go. The verb saber also drops out the letter E, so instead of saying saberé, you say sabre, sabre. You just run that sound together, so that E of the infinitive drops out. Sabre. So how would you say they will know? Ellos sabrán. Ellos sabrán. Muy bien. The verb salir. In the verb salir, the letter I of salir changes to a D. And this is also somewhat common. That happened in the verb poner as well above, you can see. So salir, to go out or to leave, becomes saldré. Saldré. So if you wanted to say, I will not go out with her, or I will not go out with him. No saldré con ella. No saldré con él. What time will they go out? ¿A qué hora saldrán? The verb tener becomes tendré. So I will have, tendré. I will have a good job. Tendré un buen trabajo. Don't forget the verb tener is used with a lot of other expressions, a lot of other words. For example, remember tener que means to have to. So tendré que would mean I will have to. Tendré que salir, I will have to leave. The verb venir also has a D inserted. So with venir, to come, becomes vendré. Vendré. Jesus Christ said to his disciples, vendré pronto. I come soon, or I will come soon. And there's thunder in the background. Wow, to punctuate my little statement. Next one, the verb valer. Now this is probably a new verb. This is not a verb that we've had before, but the verb valer looks kind of like the word value, and that will help you to remember the verb valer means to be worth. To be worth. This verb is not used very much in the future because you very rarely say I will be worth, but it might be used in the usted el ella form, the third one, valdrá, valdrá, which would mean it will be worth. So for example, you want to say in 100 years my ring will be worth such and such amount. You'd say valdrá, valdrá, valdrá mucho dinero. It will be worth a lot of money. The verb caber is most likely a new verb for you. Caber means to fit. And it actually is, it's the verb to fit, but something fitting inside of something else. It's not, for example, clothing fitting on you, but it's something fitting inside a box, something fitting inside of a car. For example, if you wanted to say, oh, it will not fit, you would say no cabrá, no cabrá. Or if you wanted to say, for example, in my case, I will not fit in a smart car, I would say yo no cabré, yo no cabré. I will not fit. So cabré, cabrás, cabrá. I will fit, you will fit, etc. And the last one we're going to look at is the verb haber. Haber is the verb, of course, we've already learned that is the verb to have. Haber is also the verb that you get the expression hay, H-A-Y, there is or there are. So if you want to say in Spanish, there will be, we use the word habrá. Habrá. That's why I have an asterisk next to the word habrá. For example, if I want to say there will be a party, I will say habrá una fiesta. Habrá una fiesta. Muy bien. So these are what I call the dirty dozen. These are the 12 verbs in Spanish that use a special form rather than just the straight infinitive. You have to make a little bit of a spelling change before you add the ending, but they still use the same 6 endings. Muy bien, so that's our future tense. Ahora vamos a aprender el futuro perfecto. Let's talk about the future perfect. This is just going to be a simple step for you to understand and to use the future perfect. Se puede combinar formas del futuro del verbo haber con el participio pasado para formar el futuro perfecto. So we can combine forms of the future of the verb haber. So we can take the verb haber and use that verb in the future and combine it or unite it with past participles that you've already learned in order to form what we call the future perfect. So let's take a look at this. The future tense of the verb haber will kind of follow the dirty, well, it's actually one of the dirty dozen. So the forms are yo habré, That means I will have. Tú habrás, you will have. Usted, él, ella habrá. You, he, or she will have. Nosotros habremos, we will have. Vosotros habréis, you will have in Spain. Ustedes, ellos, ellas habrán, you will have or they will have. So habré, habrás, habrá, habremos, habréis, habrán. That's the have part, will have. And you can combine that with past participles, just like when we did the present perfect and the past perfect. Now we're doing future perfect. So you could say, for example, yo habré hablado. That would be, of course, I will have, and then the word spoken. So habré hablado. The next one, you could say, tú habrás comido. You will have eaten. Next verb, let's just go down the list. You could say, él habrá trabajado. He will have worked. Nosotros habremos tenido. We will have had. For example, you could say, by the end of this semester, I will have had 3 semesters of Spanish. Or we will have had. Habremos tenido 3 semestres de español. We could say they will have said. Ellos habrán dicho. So once again, you combine the form of the verb haber in the future, that's the will have part, with any past participle that you've already learned. Remember, past participles end in adio or idio for regular AR and ER-IR verbs. And then there's the several irregular past participles like roto, dicho, escrito, abierto, hecho, and so on. Okay, let's look at some examples of how we use ejemplos, examples of how you use the future perfect. Now, once again, future perfect is not a tense that you are going to say frequently. In fact, you could probably go several days, I would imagine, without ever using this tense in conversation, because it just doesn't come up very often. You have to have kind of specific situation where you would use this. But let's look at some examples. Para el semestre que viene, habré seleccionado mi especialización. Para el semestre que viene, habré seleccionado mi especialización. So that says by next semester. And by the way, when you say que viene, that's a way of saying next in Spanish. El semestre que viene literally means the semester that's coming. That's how you say next semester. So if you wanted to say, for example, next year, you could say el año que viene, or next month, el mes que viene. So para el semestre que viene, for next semester, I will have chosen my major. Habré, there's the I will have, seleccionado, that's the past participle of seleccionar, to choose or select, and of course, especialización is major. So, para el semestre que viene, habré seleccionado mi especialización. I will have chosen my major. Muy bien. Para el año 2050 o 2050, habremos colonizado la luna. Para el año 2050, habremos colonizado la luna. By the year 2050, what does it say? We will have, that's the habremos, colonizado, colonized, there's your past participle, the moon. So maybe we'll have, by the year 2050, we will have colonized the moon. So you can see we use future perfect generally to talk about events that will have happened by a certain time or a certain date in the future. And the last one, ¿qué habrás hecho para el año 2020? ¿Qué habrás hecho para el año 2020? What does that question ask you? What will you have done by the year 2020? Habrás, will have, you will have, and hecho, done. Remember, the past participle of the verb hacer is irregular. ¿Qué habrás hecho para el año 2020? What will you have done by 2020? Muy bien. Okay, let's do some práctica. I've got some sentences here like I've done in the past where I am going to leave out the verb form, but I will give you the verb in parentheses and then we'll work on getting the right form into the sentence. So the first one, para el final del verano, nosotros blank SPA 203 or Spanish 203. And then we have the verb terminar, to finish. So what are we trying to say here? Well, para el final del verano means by the end of the summer, what will we have done? We will have finished Spanish 203. So what's the we will have part? Well, we want the verb haber, H-A-B-E-R, but we want in the future form for nosotros, that would be habremos. And then the past participle terminar would be terminado. So we will say, para el final del verano, nosotros habremos terminado Español 203. We will have finished Spanish 203. Número 2. En 3 años, yo blank. And then we've got graduarse. So what are we trying to say here? We're trying to say, in 3 years, I will have graduated. So we want to take the verb graduarse and we want to use it in future perfect. Ahora, este es un verbo reflexivo. This is a reflexive verb. Whenever you conjugate a reflexive verb, remember you have to take the se off the end and change it to match the subject. Well, the subject here is yo, so the se will have to come off the end of graduarse and change to me. And then we need the future perfect. So the yo form would be habré, and the past participle of the verb graduar, it's a nice regular verb, that would be graduado. So you're actually going to have 3 words here to form this verb. En 3 años yo me habré graduado. I will have graduated. And you may ask yourself, why is the verb graduate reflexive? This is one of the verbs in Spanish that it's reflexive just because it is. There are some verbs that just happen to be reflexive, and this is one of them. So you can't just say yo habré graduado. You have to say yo me habré graduado. I will have graduated. Now, of course, the yo is optional. You can just say en 3 años me habré graduado. You never, of course, have to say the word yo. Muy bien. Número 3. Para el año 2025, tú blank casarse. So by the year 2025, you what? Well, casarse means to get married. So we want, or to marry. So we want to say by 2025, you will have gotten married, or you will have married. Once again, this is reflexive, so se will come off and go into the front, but it has to change to match tú, and the reflexive pronoun that you use with tú is the word te. So se will change to te, and then you have to have the tú form of the verb haber in future. So it'll look somewhat similar to number 2, habré, except it'll be the tú form. That would be habrás. And then you want the past participle of the verb casar, which would be casado. So para el año 2025, tú te habrás casado. By the year 2025, you will have gotten married, or you will have married. Muy bien. Número 4. Para el año 2030, mi mejor amiga blank 5 hijos. Oh, ay, ay, ay. So by the year 2030, my best friend blank 5 children. And you've got the verb tener, to have. So what are we saying? By the year 2030, my best friend will have had 5 children. So since it's mi mejor amiga, that's the same as saying she, of course. What form would we use? Well, that would be the word habrá. That's the form that goes with she, habrá. And the past participle of the verb tener is tenido. So she will have had, habrá tenido 5 hijos. Para el año 2030, mi mejor amiga habrá tenido 5 hijos. Muy bien. Y número 5. En 10 años, yo blank mi tesis. En 10 años, yo blank mi tesis. In 10 years, I something my thesis, or could even be dissertation. Escribir, of course, to write. So you want to say, in 10 years, I will have written my thesis. Well, how would you say I will have? I'll give you a hint. It's part of number 2. Muy bien. That would be the word habré. And the word written then is an irregular past participle from the verb escribir. Hopefully you remember that's the word escrito. So I will have written, yo habré escrito mi tesis. En 10 años yo habré escrito mi tesis. I will have written. Y el último, last one, los hombres blank el planeta Marte para el año 2040. And then we've got the verb visitar. What are you trying to say here? Well, we would say with number 6, men will have visited the planet Mars by the year 2040, maybe. So, los hombres, that's the same as saying they. So we want the ellos form, third person plural, of the verb haber. So they will have would be what word? Habrán. And visited would be the past participle of visit, which would be visitado. So they will have visited. Los hombres habrán visitado el planeta Marte para el año 2040. Muy bien. So I hope this has helped you to understand the future, and then of course how you form future perfect and what are the differences. Of course, future is just I will do something. Future perfect, I will have done something. Muy bien. Gracias por su participación en esta presentación y nos vemos pronto. Adiós.